I'd like to welcome you to the 21st series of webinars for peer supporters. Can you believe we've done 21 of these, guys? Absolutely amazing. What a team. I'll tell you, working with N.A.P.S is one of the experiences that really makes my day. So I'm very glad to be part of this. I'm very glad to be able to take and assist in any way that I can assist. And we want to thank you for your participation in this wonderful event that we're going to have today. I happen to be Peter Ashenden. I'm the Director of Consumer and Family Affairs for Opta Behavioral Health Solutions. Here's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. My role in this is, as I said, is to be a moderator and Opta brings technology to N.A.P.S so that we can take and have this available to people at no cost. So that's the area that we're really trying to push, is we know that peer supporters do not make fantastic salaries. We know that they have very limited income. So we're trying to take and bring you as much skill building as we possibly can so that you can take and do a better job with the job that you're doing and how you can help yourself. Many of the things that we go over are things that will help you to help yourself. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, who is going to introduce not only our webinar speaker for today, but the keynote for the upcoming conference in August.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, Giatane Williams is also going to be our opening keynote speaker for the August 20th and 21st National Peer Supporter Conference in San Antonio, Texas. More information on that is available on our website. But let me talk a little bit about Giatane. Giatane is a vocational wellness educator. She's been a wonderful advocate for bringing a wider wellness perspective to not just mental health care, but all health care. And I've known Giatane for, it's probably been 5 or 6 years. Just we started running each other conferences and here and there meetings, and I've always found Giatane to be very insightful. She has a very interesting perspective on just about everything. She looks at things in very meaningful ways and in ways that most people don't. So, Giatane, I'd like to turn it over to you now, and please welcome Giatane Williams.
Now, I'm going to interrupt for just 1 minute and say what I like about Giatane is not only is she a great speaker, a very knowledgeable person, but she also happens to travel with a service dog that makes her aces in my book. Take it away.
Well, let me say thank you, first of all, to Steve, Peter, Rita, and the whole community for Crestwood for assisting me in being here today. So, and for those people who may not get an opportunity to come to the 2015 Annual National Peer Support Conference, I really appreciate your attendance, and I look forward to being part of, continuing to be a part of this community. Thank you very much. So we can move slides, please. So I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, but I want you to have time at the end to ask questions. So I was born Mertice Williams. I added Giatane later in Oakland, California, to a single mother from Arkansas, and we were a family of 5, and that is not me, but I like her. So I experienced poverty growing up like a lot of people, so I kind of summarized it in this way. I grew up fatherless. I grew up living on public assistance. I grew up sheltered from life, like a lot of people, I think, in poverty, at least abundance life. I grew up with a lot of anxiety and trauma. I felt unaccepted because of my skin color and my weight. I was gender non-conforming, and I had feelings of unworthiness. But I really want to acknowledge my mother, who also grew up with a disability, but I've learned to appreciate and to begin looking at the lessons from my mother. That is what I think is her gift to me about how navigating emotional and economical experiences as a Black female. Next. So I look at things through lessons because I feel like I would never come from up under the ground if I didn't. Growing up under the poverty line in Oakland, California from 1960 to 1978 taught me a lot about the world that I lived in. Riding public transportation to neighboring cities to visit relatives was really my only social outlet. Wearing hand-me-down and thrift store clothing, traumatic experiences, unsafe environments, non-affirming attitudes and spaces were all part of my formative experiences. Next, please. So how my spirituality saved me from poverty, because I think not being diagnosed until my early 20s, my first memory of church was at the age of 5, which exposed me to new ways of thinking about myself. My siblings, cousins, and I accepted that church was the foundation of our ancestral survival and personal freedom in a world that was not always equal to people who looked like me. I was comforted by church and by those experiences. At 5 was when I started having visions and visitations, which I did not share with anyone, didn't seem to be acceptable. I began to sense that I was an individual within my family and culture, and I began to feel hopeful. This was all an internal process. I was very wise at 5. Next, please. School became my refuge and resource. I was on the honor roll from the 7th to the 11th grade. I played sports, tennis, basketball, softball, golf. And I noticed that exercise reduced my stress. I had the opportunity to meet Arthur Ashe in my elementary school, and I took up tennis. I was the ball girl for Billie Jean King, which was very exciting. And then later in high school, I played with the Ladies Professional Golf Association. That was sort of fun. Playing tennis, I was introduced to meditation. These events and meetings inspired me and gave me hope that I could have a different kind of life than the one that I was born in. Thank you. Next, please. So I began to look at things is life. I always like to use metaphors. So not understanding that my mother's trauma and courage, it was hard for me to maintain a positive attitude. And I think it's hard for anybody to maintain a positive attitude when you're surrounded by a lot of lack, by limitations, and unmet needs. So is the cup full or is it empty? Those are always the questions that I would compare life to. Next, please. So, breaking the chain of poverty, I was exposed to new ways of living and thinking through my community and school events, which were my only social outlets in terms of transitioning to other areas of the world. I reflected on my life, my environment, and my culture, and I realized I had choices and wanted to do something differently. I became determined to create a life that was abundant and safe, at least provide safety for me, and my abundance was my attitude. I developed an abundant attitude. Next. You know, growing up in the 60s, I had other inspirations. I love Martin Luther King Jr. and his nonviolent communication, this Black liberation movement, women's movement, gay liberation, Earth for Peace movement, and music. And this was all before I discovered the self-help movement and the disabilities movement. So these are all images that I hold deep in my heart. Next, please. So this is my version in my mind when I think about creating. I decided to create a positive attitude. I had to imagine this ball of light, and I found this picture. And so as I go through my road, I want to just ask you, can you imagine creating a positive attitude, and what methodology do you use in doing that? And so we can respond, or we can keep going. Thanks, Peter. Thanks. So my life changed. My 16-year-old cousin in Kansas died of aneurysm. I became the family representative. I had always traveled with my family in church. I was very sheltered up until this point. So being alone was never an option. But this was the first time I traveled on the Greyhound bus alone. I was really shy and afraid, and I was excited about this opportunity all at the same time. Next, please. So my limitations became my gift, and I think it's true for a lot of us. Poverty taught me to appreciate community resources. Fatherlessness helped me to learn forgiveness. Public assistance taught me about the public systems and many systems. Trauma helped me understand that it's a part of our human condition, that's not a personal attack on me. Not being accepted because of the way I look taught me about stigma and biases that other people have towards a lot of things. And survival struggles taught me self-determination and resiliency. Thank you. Next, please. So water is my refuge. When I think of making a transition or a change, I always imagine water, because you can take a cup of water from the ocean, and the ocean is still going to be there. Then you can put the water back in the ocean. How do you know the difference? So this is another metaphor that I continue to use as a self-advocate. Thank you. Next, please. Now, this was a very difficult transition dealing with my gender. My gender appearance was not the norm. I felt powerless as a female in my community, which is mostly African American. I had an affinity to masculinity. I wanted power, and I was attracted to female. Since I was 16, I had more hair on my face and body than the average female. I stopped wearing dresses and heels, and I felt safer and empowered by my masculine appearance. Next, please. So when I discovered my sexuality, when I was around 16, I was kissed for the first time, and it was overwhelming experience and also a welcome, loving touch. But it also threw me in a crazy town. Threw me off. I couldn't deal with it at the time, and I knew it would not be accepted in my family and culture and community, and so I reached out to the counseling community. Next, please. Disability was another lesson that I had to learn to love about myself. In the late 80s, I had an accident and couldn't work. It was a physical condition that I had, and so I received 2 diagnoses, and I was not prepared to be told that I had schizophrenia, and it was very, I didn't even think about it, because I didn't know about it. I'd never been exposed to mental health. So I just continued my physical healing and did not deal with my mental health at that time. I had no knowledge of reference about disability, and so I went back to work. and I eventually started at the Berkeley Drop-In Center. And this was my introduction to creating a meaningful role and being, among other, peer support. Next, please. Becoming a peer provider, I work for Crestwood now, which I'm very happy with where I am and feel successful. And looking back, I realized hiding my mental disability set the stage for this career. There were physical disabilities in my family. My mother had a vision disability. My sister had scoliosis, and my youngest brother was born with a small heart. So mental health issues were always was not a part of our culture, and we didn't trust other systems or resources other than those that came from church. Next, please. My exposure to mental health services, during my employment with the Berkeley Drop-In Center, I was exposed to mental health services, or I could say alternatives to mental health services, on an international level. I attended for the first time the Alternative Conference, where I met a lot of other people who were experiencing similar symptoms and also being productive. I started presenting and giving workshops and facilitating. I worked with Sharon Keene as a Wellness Recovery Action Plan for the state of California. And it actually is the practice that I use today, my RAP plan to work. Next, please. Transforming my disability into a marketable skill, seeing my disability as a gift, which took years, I might add, allowed me to work as a provider, being willing to go public about my disability opened the door to employment opportunities. I realized I already had transferable skills, even though I had only a high school diploma. I made a commitment to myself to get more skills and knowledge through exterior classes and volunteering and community organizations. I always saw myself as a professional with high standards. Regardless of my educational limitations, I feel like I strive for excellence whenever I put my attention on my intention. Next, please. So I see myself with many skills, but the skill sets that are marketable is educate, develop, and navigate wellness recovery values in the workplace for peers, job coaching and ADA accommodation, leadership and mentoring, develop peer support services, create educational training materials, and integrate health systems. Because I think we all can help each other, and we don't all have to have a disability to do that, but it really helps to be supported with a circle of support. Next, please. Sometimes I believe we're all destined to do great things, but we have to figure it out, and I call it answering the call. So I avoided the call from my 20s, 30s, but I did hear it. So healing myself was part of the call. I realized I could model well-being and healthy choices for others as an occupation. But I want to interject here that learning personal responsibility and taking it was really difficult. And it's still a barrier sometimes. People seeking services are looking for empathy and support from a provider. We don't like to be told what to do because I think sometimes it addresses our self-esteem issues or trauma issues. So for me as a peer service provider who has utilized services myself, sometimes people do harm unintentionally, but I think if we intend not to do harm, that's the best. So I understand the importance do no harm. Next, please. So I'm happy today as a peer provider. I'm a vocational wellness educator, and I came up with that coin, vocational wellness educator, because I think the workplace have a lot of people who have different kinds of disabilities. Some people are diagnosed, some people are not. You can tell by people's behavior sometimes. I think it's a part of the human condition to be imbalanced when you're stressed or in crisis or having healed your trauma. So thank God Crestwood Behavioral Health is my home now, my family. I love my job. It's perfect for me. I get to help all people. And I've learned a lot about the mental health system and cultural diversity and cultural humility. So I get to bring all of me and all of my experiences to support, educate, and train. And I also just want everybody to know at Crestwood how much I love and appreciate them helping me and supporting me to be a mature person, growing professionally and personally. So I'm thinking that, next slide, please. So this is me, and this is me at the Life You Want. There's JJ, and I don't know who that lady is. She's an Oprah lookalike. But I just want everybody to know how valuable it is to be received, to seek services, and to know yourself. And so I thank you, and we're open for questions and comments, I believe, Peter?
We certainly are. At this point, you can use your chat function to ask Giatane any questions that you want to ask Giatane, please. And by the way, Giatane, I would have thought that was Oprah, so you can let people slide on that one and let them think you stand next to Oprah.
I think people have their own interpretations, but I still don't know who that lady is, and I don't know if she looks like Oprah to me.
All right, now remember, please, when you're taking and putting your questions in the chat function, please make sure you go to the send to at the bottom of the chat box, and make sure in the drop-down menu it says everyone. Okay, please. We love you, Giatane. You are a gift to all of us from Cindy. Cindy, you didn't listen to me about the drop-down menu with everyone. You wrote that to me privately.
Giatane, I have a question. This is Steve. Yeah, you have gone from what most people consider a devastation to a very different place. You obviously are happy and have a great deal of meaning. Along that way, are there any particular factors that were especially important in that transformation?
You know, honestly, thank you for asking. Steve, honestly, I think it evolved. You know what I mean? Like, the number one thing I remember transitioning in my mind was, I started meditating. This was before I knew I had a disability. And it was a refuge for me. I think practicing wellness tools where my motto is self-care first. And so I think the accumulation of all the resources, so when I grew up between two driveways and across the street were prostitutes. I didn't even know what sex was. But I started looking at people as I could feel their pain. So I would say, I think my heart became my compass. Even though I was struggling, I knew other people were struggling. I do like having inspirational thoughts and music, and I do love nature. So I think the wellness tools that I've accumulated over the years, because I still am not a perfect person, I just think attitudinal was the main thing that I was able to harness. with inspiration.
Great. So if you had advice for anyone, what particular piece of advice might you share?
Well, I think self-assessment. I think people can tell you a lot about who they think you are, but I think telling the truth to yourself. When I start seeing things and I realized that it wasn't gonna win me friends and influence people, I kept it to myself. But then it got to a point where I needed support, and I think recognizing when you need support or when things are not working out. So even though I didn't have a mental health community growing up, at that time it was the church. So I think seeking the support that you need for yourself, even if you have to do it in privacy, is very helpful.
Great. And what do you think holds most people back from that transformation?
Well, the first thing I would say is that we're communal as human beings and we want to get along with other people. And I think the shame and isolation can be very comforting as a habit. We can control things when we do things on our own. So I just think taking baby steps, not knowing which direction and not having clarity, for me it was a lack of intention and a lack of focus. Because I still have these issues. I may be better at navigating, but I think they still come up. So sometimes, honestly, I think we just want to get along and we all want to be loved. And sometimes we're around people that say they love us, but they're not loving themselves. And I feel distinguishing or discerning between those two.
What can peer supporters do to help? And from your experience, what would peer supporters be most valuable doing?
I think peer supporters are a fabulous group of people who have survived horrendous things in their lives. And I think the best way that we can help others is not only allow them, but to coach them in ways when they ask for help. Sometimes as providers, even traditional providers, they may see things that we could do differently, but they have no idea what we're going through. They only know what we're through. So I think peer supporters in the workplace is a fabulous way to help people. But I think peer supporters also need to be clear about what skill sets that they have and bring to the table, and learn not to be the center of attention and learn to give to other people. So that's the vocational piece, I would say.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a question, Giatane, if I may.
Yes, sir.
What changes have occurred in your life as a result of you having a service dog? Because you know how partial I am to service dogs.
Yes, I think I have to acknowledge, Peter, that you were inspirational with me, and there were some other people that had service dogs. Never had a service dog. And just like having that happy, loving feeling with me all the time, because I can't always pull it up if I'm stressed out. But when I look at my dog, JJ, and I know he loves me and he gives me that undivided attention that I didn't get as a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I don't always get it with my partners. You know what I'm saying? So I realized that having a psychiatric service dog was having happy around me all the time. And I needed that. I still need it.
I agree with you 100% because as you know, you've never seen me. I don't believe you've ever seen me without Bella.
I don't believe I have.
No. We have a question from the audience. This is from Dorothy, and I call her D. of your story are similar to mine. My question today, I still have moments of struggling with depression. What do you do, or what have you learned that helps you through? Are you always happy? Are there times you get exhausted from your calling and wonder if there's something else you should be doing?
Well, thank you very much for the question, and I think it's true we're all kind of similar in our experiences. I believe depression is a metaphysical. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm going to do a disclaimer right now. I'm not a doctor. But for me, depression was an opportunity for me to be still and unwind myself from all the traumatic things that I didn't deal with while I was growing up. And I needed rest. So yes, I still every day have to remember that I am somebody and that I'm lovable. I have to tell myself every second how loving I am and that I am part of a loving community. I don't think it goes away. I think it's like waves or a wheel. You know, some days I'm up and some days I'm down. But I've learned that I have to pull myself out. No one's going to do that for me. As much as I would want them to, and as much as I lean on other people. So I think depression is an opportunity or invitation, what I call it, is to work from the inside out. To take that time, because the pressures of this world is like the wave. You know, when you get into the ocean, sometimes the ground comes up under you, the sand slides up under you, and then the water comes over you. That's what depression feels like for me. Now, I'm not a swimmer, so I don't go into the water alone, so I can't always do things alone. Thank you.
That was a great response. You also have another comment. Linda, you didn't take and put it into the everyone, so I'm going to take and share your comment with everyone. Sharing your skill set is great. Putting skill set into words helps us to do so as well. Helps us to do so as well. So the comment here from Linda is that you really did a great job of taking and bringing your skill sets and putting your skill sets into words, which can help so many other people. We have another comment from D. D says, "Thank you, Murray. Well said. I receive it, and I thank you very much."
Oh, thank you.
That was the person that asked the question that you just responded to a moment ago.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? We got an opportunity to have somebody as great as Giatane, who has skills and abilities. This is your chance to ask her questions and start shaking inside her head and see what we can find.
It can be dangerous. So I want to say, I do want to say one thing, and I want to ask people to think about this. Can't you see that your lived experience is a gift that you can share with others? And can you name those skills or identify those skills or principles that you bring? Because I think we need to have clarity about what our skill sets are. So I want to be really clear that I'm a skill-based person, you know, and principle-based. So I'll give you an example. I was not very good at taking direction from my mother or from anybody. I wanted to do it on my own all the time. And I think that skill is a great skill of assertiveness, aggressiveness sometimes. But I wasn't in harmony. So if people didn't do what I wanted them to do, then I would get very upset and I would go into anger, and then I would have outbursts because I wasn't really able to receive other people's gifts as well as I was able to advocate for myself. So I had to learn to allow other people to have the same opportunity to express themselves in a sharing way, and I think it comes from trauma. So being with other people who come from trauma kind of flares up, and so the skill that I have now is mindfulness. I want to be mindful of who I am and where I am. Thanks.
Well, we have another question, Giatane. It's from Joyce. She wants to know how you learn to reframe your thoughts and experiences. She says it sounds like you started doing this early on. Do you remember how you learned how to do that?
How I learned how, say it one more time?
How did you learn to reframe your thoughts and experiences?
I think once I started, I think it's a great question because I think it becomes a gentle process. You know, I tell people my spirituality is love. And I would not treat a baby the way I was treating myself. And so I started to treat myself, had to parent myself in a lot of ways. And so sometimes, you know, you hear the expression, you can get more from honey, sugar. And so I talk to myself this way. And I think it just comes over time of releasing trauma and letting go of the harshness of the world. Because I think I've always been a very gentle person, but it was not a popular thing to be gentle when you're in poverty and you're dealing with a lot of elements in the communities, and you have to portray a certain strength just to walk down the street. Every time I went outside my door, I knew I was safe. Well, I was safer in my mom's house, but every time I walked outside the door, I put on this armor. And then I had to take the armor off when I come into work. So I think you have to be collaborative and cooperative. I learned that.
Here's another one for you, if I may. What was your biggest obstacle that you had to overcome, Giatane?
I think my biggest obstacle that I even just discovered in the last few years is recognizing that I was not treated, that I was neglected. Not intentionally, but I was neglected as a child, as the oldest daughter. I didn't have the same loving, embracing environment that perhaps a two-parent household has, or two people who love each other has, or people who have money. So I think trauma.
Do you think trauma was the biggest obstacle you had to overcome?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. In my own life, I think trauma, but I'm going to put a little bit different spin. You came from a one-parent household. I came from a two-parent household that never stopped fighting, constantly, ongoing. That's vicious. You know, on and on and on. So that's not a great environment to be in either.
Yes, I agree.
One of the things I've found very helpful, and I've been working with Lisa Najavitz on this, is a group called Seeking Safety that helps people with both trauma issues and substance abuse issues to be able to take and function in the moment instead of taking and spending so much time dealing with the past.
Yeah.
It helps you to build skills on how you can lead your life successfully. So I find that particular modality to be very good. And we at Optum have been taking and developing seeking safety groups in various parts of the country. We have some in California, we have some in Kansas, we have some in Houston, and we're expanding. We have some in Rhode Island, and we're expanding that base each year. We're expanding more and more seeking safety groups. And we are finding that people are finding the kind of help that they need and the kind of path that they need to find their own recovery. So,
yes.
You might want to try sometime. I think there's seeking safety groups throughout California. You might want to try to go into one of those. It may help you. You never know.
Excellent idea. Thank you.
No problem at all. It's a wonderful help to me. And I'm a person who experienced trauma at 7 years of age. So very significant trauma. I know what you're talking about, Giatane.
Giatane, we have another question here. One from Alicia. She is asking, what trauma modalities do you participate in to assist you in moving beyond the trauma, I guess, and the challenges? Are there any particular modalities that you found particularly helpful as far as handling the trauma?
Well, we've been blessed to have trauma-informed care. I was exposed through Raul Amazon, who was presenting in Boston, Massachusetts around seclusion or restraint and looking for alternatives or nonviolent. And I think it's hard to acknowledge that we're neglected. And so the trauma-informed practices I use are the principles that are down to use on the website. I think for me, the most important modality I use is my spiritual belief that we're born whole, perfect, and complete, and that I get to choose or re-choose any area of my life. So it's not something particular. They're like a little bit of this. So I do science of mind as a formal church. So spirituality, I just think there's so many wellness tools available. JJ, my service dog, nature. Those are the organic things that are free for me and I can use. Thank you.
We've got an interesting comment from Dorthine, I think responding to Alicia's comment. Spirituality, tapping, seeking wisdom through scripture and learning to forgive has helped Dorthine. So that's a very relevant comment.
Yes, very nice. Thank you. Forgiveness is another modality.
Want to comment on your comment, Rita? I guess not. In next steps, we use something called a silver lining questionnaire to see the good that can come from the bad. That came from the bad.
Oh, yes.
If you Google silver lining questionnaire, it's an amazing way to look at where you've been, where you are, and actually the value of the challenges. It's a very short, easy survey. It's just for your own benefit, but it's very valuable.
Yes, and I want to be really. Can I just think really quickly? And honestly, I think everybody resonates with different modalities. I don't think it's a one size fits all. So sometimes we come in contact with people, places, or educational opportunities that work for you, but it's not like the things that work for me does not work for my sister or my brothers. You know what I mean? So I just want to be clear that this is one path, and I believe there are many paths to recovery and healing.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And there is no unique way to find it. Everybody's going to take you down a different road, and they're going to come up with different things as they go down those roads. But that's the beauty of it. Being a person who's been diagnosed for 30 years, I think I can speak to that one.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions from anybody in the group?
Can I just say something? They're good?
Apparently you blew them out of the water because you've left them speechless.
I don't know about that, but I'm glad that people came, and I really appreciate this opportunity and was eager to meet people face to face in Texas.
Everybody is saying how much they appreciate you sharing your experiences. They thank you very much for being such an inspiration. And you mentioned cultural humility. Can you say a little bit more about that? Humility?
Well, I can tell you my perception of cultural humility. I think when we talk about cultural humility, we talk about diversity. It's kind of intertwined with being individually honest about the fact that I have no idea not only where you come from, but we talk about in trauma-informed care the cultural
veterans are eligible. If any of these situations apply to you, you have been told by your local...
All right, I'll take care of it. Just give me a minute. Yes.
Okay.
7, hold on. 767, here we go. How did you get off of mute? You're back muted again. I'm sorry, go ahead, Giatane.
Okay, so what I wanted to say, there's historical trauma. So in addition to our individual trauma and our ancestral trauma, we also have cultural trauma in terms of geography. And so we're bombarded with a variety of traumatic things that we can pick up on. So my version of cultural humility is that I don't know you, and I don't know what you're working with, and I don't presume to know you. But I like to know you, but I like to hear from you about what works for you.
Very interesting point. You have another comment from Kimberly, who absolutely loves JJ.
Yes, he's a love bug.
Isn't it amazing how much attention our service dogs get, and we're just cast off to the side?
Well, it's true. I would agree that people ask about JJ before they acknowledge or ask about me. But I'm
get it
learning
all the time. Oh, where's Bella? Oh, here she is. Oh, yeah. It's not, hi, Peter, how are you? It's, where's Bella?
Yeah.
Kimberly has 3 dogs of her own, and they are her salvation.
Oh, congratulations.
Now, Rita has just put in the chat box for everybody. Rita, should we take and go over that now? Why don't we take and go over that now with people?
Thank you.
Sure, can you hear me?
We're not done with you yet. We're just taking and going on to some other stuff that we have to do. So, yeah. All right, here's how you receive a certificate. We're just going to go through this process with us.
Okay, so a lot of people would like to know how to get the PowerPoint slides, and those are available at the end of the quiz. We just, in order to be able to do the record keeping and be able to offer the certificate that is meaningful for continuing education, we just need you to go take a quiz with it's just a 5-question quiz. Once you complete that, there will be a self-check page where you can just check your answers against the ones that Giatane had come up with when we came up with the quiz. And on that self-check page, there is a link to the PowerPoint presentation. Get that. When you complete the quiz, we'll get your name and address, and we will send out a certificate of attendance in about 2 to 5 weeks. With the conference, I would say more like 6 to 10 weeks, but there will be a certificate in the mail waiting for you once you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And I think on behalf of not only N.A.P.S, but also on behalf of Optum, we want to take and thank you, Giatane. You really brought a very powerful message to our community today. And you could tell from the reaction that people were definitely engaged and listening to what you were sharing. And you know what, Giatane, what I especially noticed is that you shared from the heart. So I have a comment here from Stanford. I believe the best part of this is to know that there isn't just one way. This was a very helpful webinar. Thanks, Steve and Giatane. And
Thank you.
Kimberly says, best of luck to you, Giatane. Giatane, you wound them over, man. You got them.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
it.
everything.
What you got to do is carry that into the keynote when you do the keynote in August.
Yes, indeed. It's nicer to see people face to face. Let me be clear, okay? Love you, whoever.
And they'll also get a chance to see both of our service dogs if they come.
Yes, indeed.
And I will even let people pet Bella if they want.
Well, I'm selective. JJ's only 6 pounds. He only takes so many people's energy out.
Bella's got to beat by 11 pounds, so at 17 pounds she can hold her weight.
Exactly. But happy Friday to everybody and a great weekend.
Happy Friday, everybody. And again, thank you all for really participating and being part of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very, very much.
And thank you, Peter, and David Barker, who does the recording for the archiving, Creatives Media. So thank you, everyone. So many, thanks community. We've got it.
Excellent. Everybody is definitely saying, applauding your work, Giatane. Yeah, you're getting very positive comments in the chat box.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate everybody.
All right, looking forward to seeing you next month, Giatane.
Yes, 2 weeks.
Yep, 2 weeks away.
All right.
Good night, everybody. Have a great day. You have all the information that I believe you need. Yep, you have all the information I believe you need. I'm going to go back to this slide for a moment in case you want to get a hold of Giatane directly. You can do that with gwilliams@cbhi.net. And have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.